Hi, my name is Doug Botkin. I'm a Technology and Market Development Manager for Accugenix.
Hi, I'm Duncan Barlow. I'm Technology and Market Development Manager for Accugenix in Europe.
How are QC professionals who are not leveraging an automated tracking and trending solution performing this function?
Yeah, so if we're not using automation or, validated professional, fit for use tracking and trending, they're probably doing some sort of paper-based, some sort of Excel-based, or even perhaps LIMS systems that aren't really designed for tracking and trending. And so there's going to be potential for data loss, potential for transcription errors, and you have to, tracking and trending is more than the check the box exercise. It's more than just recording your counts or recording your IDs. It's being able to use that data on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly basis to look for these trends. Tracking and trending, you have to track your organisms, track your counts, and trend them as well. Not all your quality issues are going to appear in the form of alert and action level excursions. And so this is a very critical part of your contamination control strategy and your quality system. And this has to be done as well as possible. So I think it's really, the onus is on the companies and on service providers to provide these solutions to customers. So it's extremely important facet of environmental monitoring, like I said, and your CCS as well.
Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned here, Doug, because trending's mentioned in the contamination control strategy in Annex 1 under the proactive element. So, you're right. It's not just I'm ticking a box because it says I need to do it in Annex 1. It's about being proactive to prevent things before they get too bad. And of course, trending, takes time. Someone needs to sit down and do it and analyze it. So, an automated system streamlines that process, makes it much more simple to do it, less slower. I've spoken to people who have LIMS and they can do trending with it, but they've told me it's complex. They have to manipulate data, they have to download things, and it just seems like it's just adding extra work for something that is really quite important and should be as quick as possible, because you want to spot a trend as early as possible. You don't want to be reacting to something because probably by that point it's too late.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point, because as soon as when you see, alert is more like a trend. It's an indication of something maybe out of a state of control. But when it gets to that point, certainly action levels, you potentially missed a trend. You missed an opportunity to be proactive, like you're saying. I think it does come down to, we have to consider human factors. You mentioned that LIMS systems, if they're hard to do, there's a lot of steps. Anything that's hard to do in the laboratory is not going to be done well or done as often. And that's an impact. If it's easy to do, you're more likely to do it. And so that's a good aspect, something to consider as well. When looking for automation solutions, is it has to be done. It has to be easy to do.
There's already a lag, from your environmental monitoring data from when the sample was taken.
Right.
Do you think streamlining, the analysis of that data would help slightly? You're obviously going to have a delay because you've still got to incubate plates and things, but you said yourself, if a job's complex and difficult, people are maybe not going to rush to do it as soon as possible. And if people are using manual systems where they have to get all the results and transcribe them into an Excel spreadsheet or a LIMS, it just adds more time on when there's already a lag from when the sample was taken, the result was generated.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You're right. EM is, it's a retrospective analysis, but you want to make sure that all your data is collected and analyzed as quickly as possible. And so you're right, extra time for transcription, extra time for entering in an Excel sheet. And then, we all have had issues with, this file didn't save, or it crashes, your computer goes off, there's a power outage. You've got to deal with, files that don't save correctly, corrupted files. And so there's a lot of other things to consider when using Excel. I know when I was, in the company I was doing tracking and trending, we were using Excel. I'd have to look at, we had about a dozen Excel sheets to look at, graphs and IDs. And it is a very manual process and takes time and is not fun a lot of times. It's not, it's much easier to be able to quickly create your tracking and trending figures, look at them, compile them into your quarterly reports, yearly reports, And if the data is easier to analyze and easier to visualize too, Excel, you can visualize things in Excel, but again, it's a very manual process. When you're creating, I think everyone's experience, when you're creating a PowerPoint presentation, you put in your content, and I spend probably an inordinate amount of time tweaking figures, tweaking data charts, all the formatting and things, and so it takes that away too. So there's a lot of other things to consider when working with Excel, because it's a huge time sink. You can spend a lot of time with it, but you have to think about what value does that actually add to your figures.
You just reminded me of a story. I had a conversation several years ago with a QC lab manager who had created a dashboard within a spreadsheet. And it did look good. There was lots of nice pie charts and graphs that updated, but I couldn't help but think how much time he'd invested in creating. And as a QC lab manager, you think, is that the best use of his time? To create something like that, when there are tools that exist already that can do that.
Right. Yeah, there's no reason to recreate what's already out there in a lab like that. Yeah, I don't know any QC micro lab that I've worked in when you come into work one day and you're like, I have nothing to do. There's always something to do, and it usually doesn't include creating a whole new dashboard in Excel. There's always investigation to catch up on, SOP updates, training. There's all sorts of things.